In this video we're going to show how we model West Robson using Trainz software in 1901. Okay, we'll use the West Robson topographical map from BC Maps. It shows where the rail line was in modern times. We will use the C&WR Robson West 1928 track plan, which shows the sidings, the spurs, but it is missing the barge slips. We're going to start our modeling with a piece of pink styrofoam. So just like we do with the model railroad. This piece of pink styrofoam happens to be 4,700 feet long and 2,350 feet wide. So a little bigger than what we normally have. And each of those little grids is 46 feet by 46 feet. West Robson, the yard limits creek to creek are 2,887 feet, so it will fit nicely on this piece of styrofoam. So using the paint function, you'll see the brown is roughly where the edges of the river, Columbia River, will be, and I'm just showing you how I've got it selected right now. And you're just dragging along and you're painting as you go. If you look at this though in detail, and we get down here, what you'll see is the river rocks. So we've mapped out where the river is. There's two creeks that basically set the yard limits for West Robson, and in the light shading is where the ballast is roughly where the main line would run through West Robson. Okay, next I'm going to use my topology tool here, and we're going to carve out the Columbia River. So we've just basically put the elevation 8 meters less than the styrofoam, and we'll just drag our cursor along here, and basically we're just carving out styrofoam. And I'm just using the guides of the coloration to know roughly where the edge of the river is for now. Next, we'll use the topology tool to add water. Water will be 3 meters lower than the land. It's May, so roughly spring flood. So basically we're just selecting the water function. We put in a height of 1005, drag our cursor, and we get water that is 3 meters lower than the land surrounding it. Okay, the next step is I like to build in my topography with mountains, anything else. So when I look at the topographical map and measure it out, that's a gain of about 140 meters from the track level to the highest mountain, back that far. So I'm going to do 7 layers of pink styrofoam. So first of all, I'll just basically add this in and drop it back a bit where the creek is. There's a tighter cliff here, and then it flattens out a bit more where at the other end. So let's go like that. Okay, I've now added 7 layers, and now you can see the topography. Each layer looks like a piece of pink styrofoam. Next, I'll take my smoothing tool and I will start smoothing them all out just by moving along the edges here. No different than you would with a rasp and a file. I just keep working it until I get it all smoothed out. Okay, I finished with my leveling and smoothing tool. As you can see, we now have mountains. The creek valleys are lower, and we've also put in the creek depth right down to the water. It's not perfectly smooth since land isn't perfectly smooth, and once we put the vegetation in, it'll look pretty natural. Okay, now we're going to add in track. I select my track tool. 1901, it was 58-pound track, and the dirt that was surrounding it was thrown in the middle to create a slope. So for me, I know that happens to be standard gauge 60-pound brown dirt weathered milled ties. And we're going to start here, and we're going to add track. Now I know that when I looked at the topographical track, the beginning here was fairly straight. We'll go across, add some more track across the middle here to about here. And we can move this afterwards too. And I noticed on the topographical map there was a little bend here at the end. And it dipped a bit over this direction here, and then went straight across the creek, and then headed off in this direction here. Okay, we're going to start now with the Y at the south end, since we knew the Y ended pretty well where the creek was. So I've laid in a piece of track here that is 300 feet long, 285 feet long, which is what the inspection report of 1898 stated the track length was. What I've done is I've added in some nulls here on the track. These are little spots where you connect track. So I've got the plus sign on, and I'm just going to grab the track here and start adding in a switch. And the switch I will run right to the end of the track that I have so that it just forms its own gradient. And I'll just straighten the tail track here very quickly. I'll do the same over on this side. I've measured the distances, pre-measured these so that they're all matching the tail. so that they are all roughly the same length. Oops, a little mistake there. So Control Z fixes things pretty quickly. And we'll do the exact same thing here, which will create a turnout over here, a Y turnout. Next, we want to add in our switch stands. So my choices for Canadian switch stands are C&WR switch stands. What we do is we just take, first of all, we'll get the direction set, so we get the direction for the main line here. Then we remove the one that was there, and we put in a C&WR mainline switch stand right on the tie bar here. And since it's going the wrong way, we just reverse it to the other side, and now we have it aligned for the main line with a mainline switch stand. Okay, next we'll add in the first siding. The siding off the track plan is 1,222 feet long. I've drawn that distance out with my little pink arrows there. You can see it. So we're going to add the siding. It starts here, about 100 feet off the Y. We'll just add our first switch in, roughly to here. We'll add a switch on the other end to here. And then we'll just join the two of these together. And they curve, so we'll straighten that track out, and we now have a switch. Our next activity will be adding the interactive passenger station. So the interactive passenger station allows for loading and unloading of passengers, mail, express, and baggage. What we also do is we have the actual building, and I can just drag the building onto the platform here beside the mail cars. And let's see here, this building looks a little high, so we'll lower it down one lower. Here, now we got about the right height. The building is reversed in West Robson. The baggage portion depot was north, so I put it northbound, even though the building's not quite made for that. It's one of the limitations of the software. And we just put the name of West Robson in here, so we know where we are. So when we select it now, you will notice that we are West Robson on the building. Last thing we have to do is we have to connect the track in. So we just go back, grab a null, click it on the end. The track at the station becomes the same type of track, and we now have a station. Okay, we've added in the two spur lines in behind the station here. I did that to get things sort of looking like they're supposed to. Next, we're going to add in the wharf. So again, I go over here to my objects. I select a timber jetty. These are called splines, so they're like track. When you click on them, they basically just extend and grow. So we'll just get this, basically try to keep it on the same tangent as the track. And we know the wharf was about the same length as the spurs. And now we do this, we'll just get it to the right height so that it's level throughout. Now the other thing is we need track on this, so we'll go over to our track, but this time we're going to select track that's rail only, since we're up on a jetty. So we'll just connect this onto the rails on top of the jetty. Do the same thing, get a little dizzy here as we get to the end of the jetty, and we'll add the track out to here, and we'll add its elevation, and now we have track rail only to the end of the jetty. Oh. Get up a little bit here so you can see the track is now on the jetty. Okay, now we've added in some more objects just to get things building. In front of us here we have the Minto, which is an object, and it's a drivable object. So it's no different than a train. The red bar you see there is invisible track, and you basically program it the same as any train to go from one spot to the next. It will load passengers, it moves through the waterways, and you just put invisible track everywhere. We've also put down invisible track below the barges, which are also rail cars. There's two linked together to get roughly the same distance as the barges that ran here. And we've added in, and let's go a little closer here, we've added in a barge slip, which is an object, and it's raised a certain amount above the water. And then we've added in a couple log bridges to hold up the rails between the shore and the ferry slip. Okay, now we're going to run some track onto the barge slip here. We've selected a different type of track. It's 60 pounds still, milled, weathered, but no ballast. So we're going to run this track from the end of the ferry slip here, the barge slip, and we'll bring it and we'll connect it into the track here at the end. And we will have to raise it. There's part of it. And it's the thing when you put track in, you have to basically set it so that it's at the right height. And then we can move it around here to get it to the right place. I'll just bring it in here and bring it right to the very end of the track where it'll join the barge. So we'll put some different track on the barge. There we go. So we now have the ties sitting on top of the logs tied into the rails. So the next thing we do, and we'll just do one of them here, is we'll just pick rail only, and we'll run some rail onto the barge. So we'll just select the end point here, and we will run our rail down to the end of the barge here. Change the height. And we now have rail on the barge. Scenic-ing to start out, I go into the paint palette, and I'm just going to pick some a bit of paint here. I know I like this one here. It's rock, and it's got grass interwoven in it, and it's seasonal. So when I go to winter time, it will turn to winter. And what I do is I combine a number of types of grasses here to create a baseline. So we've got some brown grass. We'll throw in a bit of brown grass here and there. Just sort of clicking on things will hide things here. Throw in a bit of prairie grass, a little longer. It's got different colorations, and I'll do different things. This one's a hayfield, so again, it's going to look a little different. And then we have some scrubby, seasonal scrubby. I like seasonal scrubby because it's kind of got some strange colors to it. And what that gives us is a bit of a palette here. We could throw in some moss and leaves if we wanted, a bit of hillside moss and leaves, a bit of dead stuff in here to give it a little bit of brownish colors. Everything's not just green. Okay, so now what we've got is we've got a palette here that I can repeat in a couple places. Random size pine for seasonal is important since in the winter you want snow. So it's just a matter of coming in here and planting some trees now. Because it's random sizes, we'll get different tree types. Each one is a click on my mouse. This area is mostly pine trees. It's the Kootenays, so pine trees should be pretty common. Okay, now we've got what looks like a nice forest, so we just go into copy mode, and this is where being digital has a lot of advantages over physical. Anybody who's planted trees will know how long it would take to create a forest of this size. Just building the trees, never mind planting them. This is where digital really does make things quicker. The last scenic item we have put in is some ballast. Again, this is pretty simple. I've got some ballast here that's similar to the ground cover in the area, since the dirt and the ballast would have come from local sources. And it's a matter of just selecting the appropriate color and dragging and dropping along your tracks to fill in where the ground covers didn't fill in. Okay, we're finished building for today. Last thing to do is add some train cars. So we go to the train car object, and we have lots of CP rail box cars to select from. We'll pick a 34-foot box car, number 1202, and it's as simple as a click and point. And then, so we got proto ops. We need to actually do the car numbering. So I use the system of where is it coming from. This box car is coming from Revelstoke. Where is it going? It's going to Greenwood, GD. It's a box car, and it's the first one in the series. And here we can now select what it's going to carry, general goods. It's loaded fully with general goods, and we can then put it on here. That's as difficult as it is to add a car. Now, and also you can add whole consists at once. I go over here. We can add a passenger consist out on the wharf with the Minto. So we'll just do that here. Around. So we have is a 280 combine and a passenger that would have been meeting with the Minto here at West Robson. We want to add Greenwood consist onto the spur. I'll go with the spur and we've got a consist of cars here now. And then if we were over at the barge, we could add a smelter junction consist of cars heading over to smelter junction. Get them. Okay, at this point we've built a very basic West Robson. To understand timing though, I would have probably spent 4 to 5 hours of research time in advance of this trying to figure out what was built in 1901. What you saw in the 15 minutes, I at least had another hour of time behind the scenes preparing each of the film clips. I would have then also, after this point, spent probably 2 to 3 hours adding details such as you see in this picture here with horses, wagons, people, speed limits, yard limits, all of the details that go around a scene. And then I would be getting into proto ops. So I would be actually the proto ops timing. Proto ops would have taken me probably about 10 hours of programming. So to build West Robson, I'm probably into it for about 30 hours of time. So the last couple things, I'll show you some interesting things. Here, we've just changed it to September. So you notice all of a sudden by just changing the date, all of the colors, the trees, the grass, everything now looks like it's September, end of September, fall colors. This is one of the beauties of Trainz. You can pick whatever day of the year you want to model. And if you like running Trainz in the chill of winter with everything frozen solid, well, going to winter is the click of a couple buttons changing it to the month of December. And with that, we'll wrap up modeling West Robson, and hopefully you had a bit of a feel for what's possible using digital modeling.